September 1918, Berlin sent the United States a formal diplomatic protest and demanded one weapon leave the Western Front. It named the pump-action shotgun, cited the Hague Convention, and threatened to execute any captured American carrying one. The argument came down to fire density. 6 shells could throw 54 lead pellets in under 2 seconds at a few meters. That was enough to turn a trench weapon into a diplomatic dispute. 26 years later, Marines carried those same Winchester guns, some pulled from war reserve, into cave fighting on Peleliu, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. The same need resurfaced in the Pacific. Combat kept collapsing to a few meters. On Guadalcanal, New Britain, and Peleliu, jungle visibility fell below 9 meters, so a target often appeared only with its first muzzle flash. Japanese troops used single camouflaged firing holes cut into root systems, and Marines also faced night infiltrations through their perimeter. Then came the caves. Every bend shortened the fight again, until every shot became point blank. At those ranges, the gap in the Marine arsenal became hard to ignore. The M1 Garand was strong from about 23 to 457 meters, but a cave mouth erased most of that advantage. Inside brush and coral, there was no time to settle the stock, find the sights, and fire before the distance vanished. The problem was physical. Field reports started to say it plainly. Colonel William Alexander, heading the Pacific Warfare Board in late 1944, judged the M1 carbine weak in stopping power and foliage penetration. He then ordered 150 shortened M1 rifles. That was an emergency fix, not a planned issue, and it came from the board that existed to judge what weapons actually worked. When that board started cutting rifles down, the shortage was already on paper. The answer already existed there. The old reserve guns fit this distance better than newer rifles. They had sat in reserve stocks for 25 years, still carrying Winchester proof marks from the last war. The weapon that had drawn a diplomatic protest in 1918 answered the same problem again on Pacific Islands. That return to issue made sense for one reason. At a few meters, the answer was not theory, but the timing inside the Winchester Model 1897. John Moses Browning built it as a 12-gauge pump shotgun with an exposed hammer and a tubular magazine. For the First World War, the Army added a perforated handguard over the barrel, fitted a mount for the M1917 bayonet, and created the trench gun. The defining part sat behind the trigger because Browning left out a trigger disconnector. Hold the trigger back, drive the forend forward, and the gun fires the instant the bolt locks. Not gauge or barrel length. 5 shells sat in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, and all 6 went out in less than 2 seconds. That was the point. Those shells carried double-aught buckshot. Each round held 9 lead pellets about 8 millimeters across, which gave a full-load 54 projectiles before a reload. At about 3 meters, the pattern still stayed inside the width of a man's chest. In trenches, cave mouths, and night breaches, spread had no time to open. Winchester carried the same idea into the hammerless Model 12, which entered production in 1912. During the Second World War, more than 80,000 went to the Marines, the Army Air Forces, and the Navy. Mass issue did not settle the weapon's place. In September 1918, Berlin sent a formal protest to Washington through the Swiss embassy, and it landed on Secretary of State Robert Lansing's desk. Germany cited Article 23E of the Hague Convention, which barred weapons that caused unnecessary suffering. Berlin then threatened to execute any American captured with a shotgun, and it extended the threat to shotgun ammunition as well. The charge came from the power that had already used chlorine at Ypres. Soon, the argument would leave diplomatic paper and move into the Pacific, where close fighting would test the shotgun again. Paper threats ended at Eola Bay. On November 6, 1942, Evans Carlson's 2nd Marine Raider Battalion landed there on Guadalcanal. Their job was a month behind Japanese lines. This time, range collapsed. Carlson split his men into 3-man fire teams carrying M1 rifles, Thompsons, and BARs. They also carried shotguns and .45 caliber pistols. Many had hunted birds in the south with pump shotguns before the Corps. That mattered fast. Jungle patrols produced sudden meetings, and at that distance, extra pellets mattered more than careful aim. After 29 days, the raiders had killed 488 Japanese soldiers and lost 16 killed, 17 wounded. Guadalcanal proved the range. Baisio fixed the lesson. On November 20th, 1943, the 2nd Marine Division hit Baisio on Tarawa, a coral island of about 118 hectares, held by nearly 5,000 Japanese troops behind concrete bunkers and coconut log seawalls. The fight lasted 76 hours. Marines lost 990 killed and 2,391 wounded, while nearly all 4,836 defenders died. At 0 to about 46 meters, men climbed low seawalls into fire, where a shotgun mattered more than slow aim. On Red Beach 3, Major Henry P. Jim Crow led the assault. Once the Marines cleared the wall on Red Beach 3, aiming time disappeared. That is why Major Henry P. Jim Crow carried a Winchester. He commanded 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, came up from the enlisted ranks, set a national BAR shooting record, and built the Corps Marksmanship School. The choice was not symbolic. The photos are real. Crow moves forward with an unlit cigar in his teeth and the shotgun across his arms. Norman Hatch's camera crew filmed that sector in color, and those images became the core of With the Marines at Tarawa, which won Best Documentary Short Subject at the 17th Academy Awards in March 1945. The film preserved that choice in motion, not only in still images. Crow later received the Navy Cross. The reason sat in the distance itself. At about 3 meters, a rifle asked for a sight picture. A shotgun asked for a point and a shot. Low walls, bunker mouths, and men dropping under fire the instant they topped the crest left no spare second. One weapon fit that moment better. 10 months later, from September to November 1944, Marines faced the same decision again on Peleliu. On Peleliu, that same close-range need moved from a beach wall to limestone cave mouths, where a full-length rifle caught at the entrance. The island is part of Palau, and the landing aimed first at the airfield. From September to November 1944, the 1st Marine Division fought through the Brogel area, the ground Marines called Bloody Nose Ridge, against more than 500 linked caves and tunnels. Heat rose above 46 degrees Celsius. The entry drill stayed blunt and ordered. A Sherman hit the cave mouth with its 75mm gun and kept the opening down. M2 flamethrower men worked the same spot next, burning the entrance or sealing it with fire. Then came the charge. A demolition man carried satchel explosives forward, and the Marine with the M1897 entered last to clear whatever still moved at arm's length. Archive photographs show 1st Division dog handlers under fire with short M1897 shotguns because one hand still had to control a messenger dog. From Peleliu, that same pairing moved to Iwo Jima beside a named Marine, Corporal Herschel Woody Williams. The volcanic island covered about 21 square kilometers, and from February 19th to March 26, 1945, it cost the United States more than 26,000 casualties, including 6,800 dead. Combat photographs on the plateau of the 1st Motoyama airfield show Marines with Winchester Model 12 shotguns beside Williams and his M2 flamethrower. Williams received the Medal of Honor for reducing 7 pillboxes in one action. 7 pillboxes on Iwo Jima explain what followed on the Shuri Line. There, on Okinawa, Marines met cave positions that covered each other from the 1st of April to the 22nd of June, 1945. The 1st and 6th Marine Divisions gave the drill a name, Torch and Corkscrew. A flamethrower opened the entrance, demolitions collapsed the cave, and the trench gun hit anyone who came out. By the time the trench gun was clearing caves from Peleliu to Okinawa, the dispute led back to Washington. In 1918, America's wartime Secretary of State, Robert Lansing, answered Germany in Document 912 of Foreign Relations of the United States. The note was blunt. Lansing wrote that Germany had no lawful basis to protest the shotgun, and he warned that Washington would answer in ways that protected American troops. No execution followed. No American was ever executed for carrying the gun. Japan stayed silent. Its army carried out the Bataan Death March and the Nanjing Massacre, yet filed no similar protest. The gap in the record is the point. Germany filed a formal protest in 1918 after months on the Western Front. Japan faced the same weapon for 3 years, from Guadalcanal to Okinawa, and filed nothing. No note, no campaign. Japanese units named other American threats instead: the flamethrower, naval gunfire, the B-29. The shotgun stayed below that diplomatic horizon. It killed at platoon range, and it stayed a platoon weapon. Its real limit was distance. Double-aught buckshot worked at roughly 23 to 37 meters, and past about 46, it lost its point. Beyond that line, spread stopped helping. On Saipan's open beaches, Marines switched back to rifles. On Okinawa's exposed ridges, they did the same. Humidity made it worse. Pacific moisture swelled paper shot shells, and the swollen cases jammed the action at the worst moment. Tropical air turned storage into a firing problem. The answer was older stock. Marines hunted down 1918 all-brass buckshot because brass cases fed more reliably in tropical conditions when paper shells would not. Those brass loads led back to ordnance depots. Some of the same guns were remarked and issued again in Korea in 1950, then in Vietnam in 1965. Today, Marines carry Mossberg 500 and Benelli M4, but the task stays fixed at a cave mouth or in a dark passage, inside the same short space ahead of the barrel. Browning started that line in the 1890s. He drew it in 1897. Marines still carried it in 1968, 71 years.